Hey there, welcome to the Becoming Safely Embodied skills training. We're going to walk our way through the skills that will help you build a solid, steady, secure self inside. For many of us, these are skills that we didn't learn growing up. And so we've built a self on top of a lot of stuff that's unfinished. And it's scary stuff, or it feels scary until we have the tools, the skills to actually befriend our inner world, make sense of it, and choose how we're going to put pieces together. So what we're going to be looking at is the question of how do you build an inner structure, one that can hold the suffering of life, the horror of trauma, the existential anxiety and threat that comes from a world in chaos, and that's flooding our world. So how do we do that so that instead of closing down and shutting down, we actually can allow experience to affect us, motivate us, change us, but not get flattened by it? How do we become strong enough? How do we build a self so that we can be with the daily lives that are there and literally, like the bodhisattvas of old, transform our suffering into compassion? So these Becoming Safely Embodied skills are these foundational building blocks. And in this model by model, we're going to be looking at these very granular, simple, concrete skills that we can practice to put things in place. It's literally like we're building the scaffolding for a person to live in. And what I've known is that when people ask me, well, what does embodied mean? For me, it really is, how do we create enough space inside, befriend our parts, and open even wider so we're not dominated by our parts, and our soul can come, live inside of us, and we can listen more deeply, attune to our inner guidance and allow that to lead us forward. I've seen with being with trauma people for decades now, that nobody's path is exactly alike. And as skilled therapists, we need to have access to lots of tools so that we can help people take the steps they need to, so we can be attuned to them. And in the attuning to them, we facilitate or be with them as they attune to themselves and sort out all the internal protest and the ruckus that goes on there to find that next step, that one next step. And in that next step, reduce the amount of threat that's there. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And I'm going to go quickly through an overview of what we're doing. Why don't we heal? This is a big question we all have, especially when we're working with people who seem to stumble and get really, really stuck, or when we feel that way. And what I've seen and what really awakened for me when I did the close to 13, 14 years of study in attachment theory is that there's a big difference between trauma healing and attachment healing. The trauma healing, we're really trying to settle the person, stabilize them, and ground them. Attachment theory is about building the scaffolding inside, building a platform inside so people don't have to be crushed by life, but can actually hold and be with what goes on. And the choice then is, who do I want to be? Rather than being stuck or trapped in our trauma schemas. It's a way to deal with the flooding that happens and be able to identify when the past is invading the present. And it's also being aware that our feelings are not reality. The feelings may very well be as important as they feel to us. They may be the memory bits, our body memory, our felt sense of past experience. The question is then, do we want to take that and re-experience that in the future? Or can we let it be? Can we shift it? Can we retrain our body, mind, and heart to have a different experience? That's what we're looking at here. Fundamental to it is not looking at just one element of our multi-dimensional being. A lot of trauma treatment right now deals with the physical and the physiological responses that go on. So important, right? So necessary. But one of the things I got from yoga psychology is this exploration of what they call the koshas, the many different layers of the body. That yes, there is a physical body. We know it. It's right here, right in front of us, inside of us. We're inside that, inside our skin. There's also the energy body. And so many people with trauma and attachment issues pick up so much of the energy information, don't know how to translate it, don't know how to deal with the subtext that go on there. There are also the koshas deal with the mental, emotional, psychological layers of the body. Another layer is the sense of wisdom and discrimination, our sense of awareness that something is larger, the place we can make more profound choices from. And then they really create this or identify this other layer, the layer of the bliss body, Anandamaya. But for me, often it feels like contentment, just a sense of being at ease with everything, everywhere. And that is a place where a lot of freedom comes in. So in the BSC skills, what we're looking at is a certain orientation, that there is a healing cycle, which I'll go into, the stages of healing that we go through in healing, and the importance of a sense of belongingness and attachment. Now, who do we belong to? What do we belong to? And how do we know the difference? Can we choose what and who we belong to? And how do we value attachment and relationships instead of either being overwhelmed by them or turning ourselves into a lookalike contest winner for who we're supposed to be? One of the key things we do is make life really granular. So rather than trying to take big leaps, we're looking for what's the next small step I can take that allows me to not bring up all my threat systems, all my fears, my resistances. How do I take that one next step that's like, oh yeah, that's the next step. And that's the value of making things more granular. And key to all this is being able to use what's activating us, the triggers, as guidance to get out of where we're going. Because when we're in the trigger, it's so easy to just stay lost in it. But what we're looking for is how do we get out? How do we move? How do we shift beyond that? And key to it is being able to repattern our relational skills, which is so vital for healing. The early attachment patterns that we learned, and we know that 1 out of 4 of us in the research comes from a secure attachment. The rest of us, 3 out of 4, didn't have that kind of luck. But that doesn't mean anything because we can earn that secure state and the way of being in the world. And the BSE, the Becoming Safely Embodied skills, are central to that. It's about being part of a safe community where people respect and value, feels that making mistakes is actually a good thing, trying things on, taking risks, and realizing, oh, I can learn from it, I can grow from it. There are people there who can help and support. It's also a place of practicing communication skills that work. We also do a lot with valuing attachment, respecting each other, and seeing the best in people and in ourselves rather than quick to find what's wrong. And by doing that over and over, we practice being in the kind of field that we want to be in. And we literally are training our body, mind, and heart to have the experiences that we want to have. So I'm so glad you're here, and I look forward to having some time with you. We're on to the next.